Hello. Hello, everyone playing at home. Where's the camera? Somewhere. Hello, everyone. I'm Rachael Jacobs, she, her pronouns, and I'm coming to you from Western Sydney University. And I begin by acknowledging country. I'm a visitor here. I believe that we are on Awabakal land. And I acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. It is the home to the first storytellers, the first artists in history in the world. And when we talk about social and economic justice, we must remember that there can be no forms of justice until we have First Nations justice. So everybody, I am joining you, as I said, I'm from the School of Education in Western Sydney University. I have the great honour of teaching the next generation of teachers. So I'm feeling a little fish out of water being amongst all of you today. This is outside of my regular comfort zone. So thank you for bearing with me. I'm actually standing here today as an artist. So I have a range of things that I do, including owning a dance company. I'm also a theatre maker. I work with migrant and refugee communities on drama and theatre projects. And I'll talk a little bit about how that's informed some of the work that I'm going to talk to you about from some lessons I learned in Ireland. So can it work here, the basic income for artists in Ireland? So firstly, I just want to thank Ben for the fantastic presentation that has meant that I can skip through half of my presentation because you kind of set it up for me so that's all done. We are very familiar. Sorry, am I supposed to be using the microphone?
That's fine.
That's all right. Do it. I'll use the lecture one. Okay, hello. All right, so as Ben mentioned, a lot of us are very familiar with the challenges of artists, and which was, of course, exacerbated over the COVID period, or the COVID period made visible what artists go through every single day. We've always had a gig economy, as Ben's work has highlighted, and we've always been told that the solution to all of these problems has been to go and get another grant, which are competitive grants. Me getting a grant means that you are ranked. So my success in the grant field means that somebody else did not get one. It's predicated on competition. Or the solution is to go and find a side hustle or to go and do more lucrative work that can compromise your creative product, or just to get a better job that the Liberal governments have told us for so long. So on top of that, we have the absolute damning report that came from Creative Australia this year that showed the dreadful earnings of the professional artists and also the non-professional artists in Australia, and that 78% of artists are using their personal savings to sustain their practice. So the biggest investors in the arts in Australia are the artists themselves. So here's some things that are really harrowing, but Ben's work bringing real life experience, into some data is fantastic, that people are going without meals, people are using other mechanisms to pay for essential things like repairing your car and things like that. So it's a very highly educated workforce. Artist workforce, very highly educated, very highly trained, has high levels of education. The training for what I do began when I was 3 years old. So, that's what you're paying for when you get an artist. But yeah, that report was really, really, really harrowing for us. So how does that, how on earth could a basic income for artists help? So a couple of things converged. I became involved in writing a policy for a basic income for artists during the last federal election. I'll declare my political affiliation as well. I am a member of the Greens, and at the last election, I ran for federal parliament in a little seat called Grainler, and we took to the electorate a basic income for artists, which is a policy that I helped developed with now Senator David Shoebridge. That model was based on the French model and also the Irish model, and that model is still under development and being tweaked. So that's how I arrived at that. Just after that, I got a fellowship at Trinity College in Dublin, and so I have had the pleasure of spending a lot of time in Ireland over the last year. And so I decided to do some investigations into Ireland's basic income for artists, which is a trial. And it's a pilot that's running over 3 years. They are in the latter stages of that. There are 2,000 eligible artists and creative workers who have been selected at random. It is not a universal basic income. Not everybody got it. It was a random draw, and they receive this kind of stipend, and they get monthly payments in order to be an artist. So I decided to go over there, and I spoke to some of the artists who are receiving, it's called the BIA. I also spoke to the policy makers and the policy designers. The Irish Greens were those who proposed this, and then there were a range of policy makers who put this together. And I also spent some time working at the Irish Arts Council. And what I'd like to show you today is a little bit about what I learnt as part of these, part of these conversations that I had. So the first thing that we found in the conversation with artists is that it is as a basic income, you didn't have to do anything. The application was quite short. And for artists, they initially went, where's the rest of it? Where's the rest of the application? Because we're used to filling out pages and pages and pages of grants and justifying why we should get something and telling everyone what we're going to do with the money and then how we're going to evaluate that. And then how we're going to give that to the community and how we're going to create ongoing change. And you're like, seriously, I'm asking for $500. Thank you. You know, what are you expecting me to do here? So the application was relatively short. You did not have to do anything. It's a basic income. But the artists I spoke to are now making 3 times as much creative endeavour, creative product as they were before they were receiving the BIA. And more than that, they are employing other people. So artists are saying, I received this and I was able to write this new show. So I took that into a theatre and I was able to employ a lighting designer and a choreographer and a set designer and a stage manager. So that's just one example of how those artists have created work that is able to employ others. The flow-on effects have been absolutely huge. But what they said up front in my interactions with them was the improvement to their health and well-being. Things like, I'm sleeping better at night. I have a better relationship with my partner. And that's what precarity does to your life. Or that's what the lack of precarity does to your life, is that you have a healthier lifestyle. People were saying, I have more time to spend on my art, and that is what makes me a happier a more grounded person. It makes me a fuller citizen in this sense. You know, I chose to be an artist despite the precarity, despite all the threats to my well-being and things like that, despite enormous community pressure not to do that. And so now that I'm doing that in a supported way, it's been really amazing. People have said that it has elevated the status of artists in the community, that people have said, oh, if the parents have said, oh, if the government believes in this, that must be a good endeavour. And there's been some quite young people who received the BIA, so 19 and 20-year-olds, whose parents or families were quite worried about them wanting to be a full-time artist, as my parents indeed were extremely worried. And so now that they're being supported, their families have started to breathe easier a little bit more and say that they can see the value of their work and they're not continually under this pressure of, you know, are you going to be okay? When are you going to get a real job? It has improved their arts practice. And I'd like to tell you a story of an aerial artist that I spoke to. So I am an aerial artist myself. I teach aerial arts. And so I was really excited to get to speak to an aerial artist. And she was saying that she has left her job stacking shelves at the supermarket, and now she is able to train a lot more. And because she can train a lot more, her body is so much stronger and so much more refined in what she is able to produce. And she said she's been able to do tricks and movement and choreography she's never been able to do. She's been able to invent some things that have never been done before. She's able to innovate and things like that, just simply because she's had all of this time to make her practice and indeed just make her body stronger. And I think that that's a metaphor for what this does for artists in the community, because you have more time to spend on your craft that is going to become stronger. And so there is sometimes a bit of people said there was a bit of an attitude in the community going, oh, why did that guy get it? That's some weird juggler. I don't like his art. Well, he's going to get better, because so you might actually end up really loving what he does, because he's going to spend more time on that, and just, recognizing that not everyone's art is for everyone, and there's nothing wrong with juggling. Juggling's really great, by the way. Something that's really close to my heart is that artists are able to set their own agenda. I'll tell you why this is really close to my art. I own a Bollywood dance company. I'm a South Asian dancer, and so Indian dance forms are my forte. As part of my artistic product, I'm frequently asked to do everything from children's birthday parties to large-scale corporate shows, and in between all of that, I get to make the art that I want to make, which is radically feminist and queer and deeply intersectional and very political. Not the stuff that everybody wants to see at a children's birthday party, right? Okay. I am in the very privileged position of being a full-time academic, so I don't have to take all the work that's offered to me. And that's fantastic. I get to pick and choose what I do. But I do have a team of dancers who do experience financial precarity, and I've got to keep them in mind as well. So things happen to me over the course of owning my company. I get asked by Adani, or whatever they're called now, Bravas, what are they called? Them. I get asked, and I won't take that work. When Prime Minister Modi came to Australia, I had money thrown at me to dance, and I'm not going to take that work. But I said to my dancers, because that's my values, a lot of you need an income. And, I don't want to put up a barrier towards you receiving a meaningful income. And one of my dancers said that I'm Muslim, there's absolutely no way I'm dancing for that man. And then the community is in a position where somebody who needs that money doesn't want to look like they have poor solidarity or something like that. And so it's not a job that we took. It's not work that we took, but I'm in that privileged position. So the artists who are receiving the BIA has said, I don't have to do work I don't want to do. I don't have to do work that actually stops me from developing my art form. And I've always said there's nothing as dangerous as an artist who doesn't need your money, because we get to make statements that are going to be unpopular. We get to shift perceptions. We get to poke at bruises. We get to shapeshift. We get to say the dangerous things that can't be said if it's dependent on a check at the end of the day. That is also could be an argument against a basic income for artists, depending on who you're talking to. A lot of people are like, no, we just want nice, pretty art that doesn't push the boundaries. We don't want the mirror held up to ourselves as society, because it's going to show us some very, very ugly things that we don't want to see. So if you could just do the nice Bollywood dancing in your costume, that would be great. So artists setting their own agenda, I think, is an absolutely huge part of it. Some considerations to keep in mind. So a lot of the policymakers were straight up about some things that they didn't think about that are being reviewed, and there will be a very robust evaluation of the BIA. In fact, one has already taken place halfway along the line. So firstly was the relationship with other payments and benefits for people who were receiving other benefits, like a disability payment. It wasn't clear what the relationship was, and a whole lot of artists didn't apply because they thought they were going to lose their benefit. And so that immediately discounted a whole lot of people from minority and intersectional communities. If you're receiving a carer's payment, people took themselves out and went, I can't afford to lose that. And being that if you're not able to receive both, some people were saying, I need the artist's wage, but I also still need the carer's income, because while being a carer, I've got to drive, the person I'm caring for around. I've got to provide all those resources and things like that. So that was something that was not considered, that needed to be stated up front. The question of who is eligible always needs a lot of consideration. Is it for people who are established artists? Obviously, you can't pick up an application form and go, I've never thought about being an artist, but now that this is available, I'm in. I don't even have an art form. You have to be an artist. But what does that mean? What does it mean for emerging artists? Are you still eligible to get this? There was a lot of questions about who got it and who didn't, because it was a random draw. That person is making incredible art. They've got all of these challenges. They didn't get it. That person didn't deserve it. They got it. Okay, these kind of things are always going to plague it if it's a ballot, which the trial was. There's also, within the artist community, everyone explained to me that in Irish society, if you have something that others don't, you don't flaunt it. There's a humility about their culture. So most of the artists said, I'm very happy to talk to you, but I haven't told anyone that I'm receiving this, including my family, including other artists. I don't want to flaunt that I have something that others don't. I don't want to show off. I feel sorry for my friends who didn't get it. So the perceptions within the artist community, I've just put that there because this should be something that brings the arts community together rather than creates divisions or creates different camps or something like that. And then the question of, is it enough money? Will it ever be enough money? So during the COVID period, a lot of my fellow artists, the payment that they received was the most money they'd ever received when socialism saved us. That was the most money they've ever received. And they were just like, this is life-changing. So a lot of artists were saying, this has been life-changing for me, but it's still not enough. I live in Dublin and the housing crisis is hitting hard. The cost of living is hitting hard. I don't want to exaggerate when I say it all comes back to housing. So just not to pretend that this one thing can fix the myriad of economic shit that we're in at the moment. Okay, so a few different factors that I think made it work before I wrap up and go to questions. This is my version. I am not Irish, so those of you who have some experience in the Irish sector may be able to shed better light on this. There's a culture of valuing the artists and the arts in Ireland. They have a history of poets and writers and them being very elevated in society. They actually have a stana, which is a stipend for celebrated artists. So they've kind of already had a version of basic income. So they kind of have two now. It is means tested though, so it is technically not a basic income. They don't have a right-wing attack media who said, why? What is this thing for? Why are we paying the juggler? Okay, or something like that. They don't have a Murdoch media. There is a broad acceptance that artists were in critical need during the COVID period. And in Ireland, there is a curiosity about basic income, which I think is really fantastic. That's the critical factors that made this work. Everyone was still very surprised when it kind of just dropped. And they're like, wow, is this really happening? Where did that come from? Which brings us to the question of, can it work here? Can it work here? Yes, I believe that it works. We've seen from the French example, it works. The pilot's already giving us great data that it works. I absolutely believe it can work here. Can we have it